Welcome to VUC 2019, Visions Under Construction. And with that very short introduction, I would like to remind you that many of us, the majority of us, will be at Kamaiyo World, May 6th to 8th, Berlin, Germany. Come and meet us. It's really fun event. God, you know, when you get older, the loop happens. So other than that, we've got our favorite guest, as I've told you many times. It's Rich Neumann from SUB2r. Rich, welcome.
Thank you. Again, it's always great to come back.
We love to have you. And we were just talking about some stuff that we're going to get into about color key, chroma key, and hello to Jay Carpenter out there in Phoenix, Arizona. A little bit east of Rich. Rich, you're still on the West Coast, right?
Still in foggy San Francisco, yes.
Okay. And of course, Michael further east in Houston. And I am in Bordeaux, France. And I think, let's see, we're going to be missing Corrado. I don't know if Hank's going to join us. Anyway, Rich, we need to, because we saw that you were on first time 2016. Second time 2017, but it's been probably about a year. And you guys been slogging along. Give us a brief history of where this started with the SUB2r camera project, how you almost killed yourself several times, and zoom forward to today because you guys are passing into production. So let's hear the whole thing.
We're actually in production, which is amazing. For those who don't know, SUB2r started not as SUB2r, but as a company we call 2R1Y. And it was designed to bring high definition, high speed 3D imaging, technology that I've been working on prior to forming the company. And to do it, we needed a camera that gave us some certain characteristics, the ability to access the data flow as the information was coming off the pixel. Went out and looked at a bunch of cameras, couldn't find one that did what we wanted it to do. So we said, what the heck? How hard can it be to build a camera, right? Everybody's got a camera. How hard can it be to build a camera? And then in building it, we'll have our own open source, open ability to get to the data we wanted. Wow, that was a crazy statement at that point in time. It took a long time to build a camera, more work than we ever imagined. But we finally did, and I don't have one sitting right, maybe I do. Anyway, to sort of speed up, we made this little 40mm cube camera we called Piggy because it looked like one of the cartoon pigs from Angry Birds. And went back to work developing our core technology. And Serge, being a proud father of the camera, decided he was going to post videos of it on YouTube. And just to show off what the camera would do. It was cute. A little 720p camera. It would run 120 frames a second. And it had just the most rudimentary of controls. But people started reaching out to us from around the world. And they were people who were vascular surgeons and bike fitters and golf swing analysis people and people who are doing coaching for the Canadian Olympics and astronomers and ghost hunters, people who hunt orbs. And, you know, from everything you could possibly imagine, people were contacting me, and I would personally respond to every single inquiry and say, what is it about this camera that you like? What is it? Why do we solve a problem for you? We know we solve a problem for us, but why you? And we began to create this list on a whiteboard of what people wanted. And then about 3 years ago, a couple of amazing things happened all together that came all together. And that was that Amazon bought Twitch, the game streaming platform, for almost $1 billion. Omnivision, the company we work with that makes the image sensor we use, said, hey, we have this brand new 4K 1080p image sensor. You want to try building a camera with that? And most importantly, a young man in Nova Scotia, a game streamer named Vaughn Whynot, sent us an email and said, "You guys ought to make a camera for Twitch." And we said, "What's that?" And when we looked at what Twitch is and we saw the market potential for it, it was absolutely mind-blowing. And if you're not familiar with Twitch, it's a platform that allows you to play a video game and display an insert of you while you play that game, and people pay you to watch you play that game. Now, if that sounds crazy, one of the things I laugh at is people pay to watch other people play golf. Now, I'm not a golf fan, so I hope I'm not insulting anybody, but I don't watch golf. But if you put aliens and explosions and some other cool things on the fairway, I might just watch golf. You know. And these people, game streamers, most of them do it because they love it. And those that really love it or are really good at it can make 6 to 7 figures a year. I mean, it's an insanely fast-growing form of entertainment combined with esports. And you even find people, professional sports leagues like the Sacramento Kings basketball, the Dallas, what's Mark Cuban's Mavericks? They will buy an esports team to represent their franchise on esports games to continue the name going forward and expand their audience. So we started looking into the camera that we developed, and we said, what would it take to make it a good camera for game streamers? You know, how can we morph what we've done and make it a really powerful tool for them? And so we went back to the whiteboard and said, oh, we just have to add these different features, and then it's good for both research people, commercial people, and game streamers. And we started down that path, developing what is now our current generation of camera. And along the way, we made one strategic delay, and that was the introduction of this little port right there. That's an SFP plus cage. Those people who are familiar with networks and data centers know what that is. One of the problems we ran into is that every time we took the camera to someone to show off, they would say, wow, this is a fabulous camera. If only it would stream in HDMI. It's a fabulous camera. If only I could get optical. Oh, I would buy a ton of these things if they had a gig E output. I'm going to put it in a submarine. I want an optical output. I mean, I want NTS. I want PAL. I want, you know, you can imagine the back of your camera getting 6 feet across and having thousands of dollars of PHY chips in there to control each and every aspect of that. We found a company called Embryonics out of Montreal, out of Canada. I think they're in Montreal. And they make these beautiful little modules. They're SFP modules, which means now I only have to support one form of video to the cage, and these modules give you any output you want. Right now, the camera that I'm using to talk to you guys is also simultaneously dual streaming on a 4K monitor. So I have 2 simultaneous video streams out of the back of our little camera at once. All of this stuff is coming together, and for me, it's really the exciting point, because now we've got a very stable hardware, and the fixes that we're putting in, the improvements we're putting in are pretty much firmware, easy to update firmware.
Right. I have a question, Rich.
Go ahead.
And the question is, I am currently working with some people who are developing a guitar that you can take apart and stick in your backpack and so on. And during that time, over the couple of years, they actually had to completely junk part of the design and start again. Did that happen to you at any point, or maybe several points? I don't know.
So it's happened to us a lot. June of last year, well, beginning of last year, we thought we were ready to go into production. I mean, we had introduced one band color substitution at TwitchCon in 2017. There was a lot of excitement about the camera. we were adamant that we were on a road to success, had designed and built the, the hardware, would have been the third iteration of this particular piece of hardware. And in June, our engineer did a mic drop on us. He basically said, sayonara, completely unexpectedly. I mean, without any warning whatsoever. Took with him all the design notes, took with him all the source code, took with him everything. We had just released cameras to production for a pilot build. And any of you who have built hardware before know that that's like dropping $20,000 or $30,000 to make 10 cameras because of all the complexity, the tooling, the setup, everything. Got the boards back to the lab, plugged them in, they blew up. And I'm not talking figuratively, I'm talking actually exploded. There was a tantalum power capacitor that had been spec'd to be wired with reverse polarity. And any of you who played with electronics know that when you back power a tant cap, it's like putting a cherry bomb in something. For me, it was like rolling the value of that is like rolling a car off a cliff, right? And said, and knowing me, I said, well, maybe that's just a bad board. Let's try another one. Blew that one up. And my partner said, no, don't blow up another one. So it turned out the design was horrendous. I don't know what he had done. I don't know why. It's difficult to understand how we had gone from something that was almost perfect and needed fine-tuning to something that was absolutely disastrous. I mean, there were parts in there that weren't power planes that weren't attached to anything else in the camera. There were parts that didn't belong there. I mean, it was everything we'd worked on in that one moment was gone. We had one lousy bit of source code that was 4 generations old, and none of the files necessary. When you have source code, you have to have library files and command files and other things like this to compile it. All of that was gone. And I was ready at that moment in time to just shelve it. I mean, and just say, forget it. You know, the people who had pre-bought cameras, I'd give them a refund and say, that's it, I'm done. And my co-founders said, no, we've come too far. Let's see what we can do. And the partners, the people we work with to build this camera said, no, I mean, let's see if we can't fix this. And our community came back to us and said, you can't give up. And it was funny. I was having one of the worst days of my life. And I said, I'm going to scuttle this company. I'm going to figure out how to pay everybody back, and I'm just going to scuttle it. And Igor, who is the only person in the company with a title, we call him our chief evil genius. He's in Berlin, and we was on a Skype call, and he said, is that the American definition of scuttle or the British definition of scuttle? And I said, I'm having a crisis here, damn it. You know, let me fall apart, would you? You know, and he hangs up. And I thought I'd upset him, right? And later I found out he had done basically 2 things. He decided he was going to learn HDL programming, and he went on a Facebook forum and said, we need someone who can do HDL coding. To which we found a wonderful gentleman in Yerevan, Armenia, who within 72 hours had compiled the crappy bit of source code we had, loaded it and had it running on a laboratory camera, then found a couple of retired engineers here in the Bay Area who said, oh, we'll fix your design for you, and completely threw everything out. So since June, we have rewritten every line of code in the camera, and with the help of Intel and Cypress and this wonderful gentleman named Tom, we have redesigned more than 60% of the circuitry, making it a far more powerful, far more energy efficient camera with more functionality than we ever dreamed. And we have a solid, stable design, and we're in production, which June of last year, I would have said was an impossibility. And now it's not.
So you've been in contact with a bunch of people through Twitch. I keep seeing that.
Yeah.
It's not something I frequent. I've also heard, I sound like a president or something. Yeah, people are telling me, I had heard that there's actually other kinds of things that stream on Twitch besides games, that some people are doing shows or something. Does that mean anything to you?
Yeah, we were part of a gentleman.
You guys that are doing the streaming.
Yeah, we were part of a very interesting experiment in the end of last year. A guy named Keenan was doing a show called Ghost Commander, which is basically a live interactive show where the audience controls what the ghost hunters do, and the other half of the audience gets to control what the ghost does. And the show itself was rough. Let's put it this way. It was an experimental piece of art, but the concept was amazing. And to do it, they were using 4 of our cameras streaming over fiber. And so they had our cameras placed around a house, and then they were live streaming over fiber to a central editing station that they were being able to cut back and forth between the rooms. Pretty exciting for us to be part of that kind of a new experimental type of entertainment. And it's what we want to see more of. We want to see more of stuff like that, because that's what the camera is really designed to allow people to do. That
is interesting. And Twitch is twitch.tv. Is that
yes.
the thing? Okay.
Yeah. And there's YouTube games, there's Mixer. What else is there? There's a bunch of platforms, and we're basically platform agnostic. We just build a camera that lets people explore and have fun.
So the camera,
as of this week, there's LinkedIn.
LinkedIn is doing live streaming now?
LinkedIn launched a live streaming service this week.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
LinkedIn, I will say my 2 cents on this. LinkedIn is becoming more Facebook.
Yeah.
And I'm really disappointed in it. I'm almost tempted to get out of LinkedIn, because I really don't care about
LinkedIn used to be phone book, though.
Yeah.
No, I think LinkedIn. I left LinkedIn because I wasn't getting any value out of it. I don't need it anymore, especially not doing business. And I had a very big network of VoIP related stuff, and we're not so much into that anyway. But what I was going to say is that at the same time, my wife uses LinkedIn professionally, and it's still less, I just say less nauseating than Facebook or other. In other words, it still has a pretension towards being a business contact thing. And if you ignore the frivolous demands, where people are just trying to get more connections and more friends, if you run it seriously, LinkedIn is probably still way better than most. So maybe LinkedIn, if they'd start doing video, they'll start doing like seminars, and you can imagine the spaces they want to get into. But I want to go back to the Twitch thing. I'm trying to understand, first of all, if the gamers are like in a small portion of the screen keyed in, why they would need that much power and that good a frame rate if you're just looking at them playing the game. And also, how, and this is a good question for you, and I don't know the answer, is why I'm asking, why some just ordinary 1080p fast camera wouldn't do that is already on the market. In other words, what are you doing that makes this so attractive? And apparently it is, because you got a lot of people interested. So what is that makes the difference?
So there is a large market of people who use just a standard webcam for streaming. And if that's all that you're going to do, you're not a professional streamer or don't want to be a prosumer streamer, they're perfect. I mean, that's exactly what you need. You know, you just do a OBS color substitution with a green screen behind you and you're fine. Then if you realize what these people are doing, it's their face and their voice, it's their brand. And oftentimes they will flip back and forth between a full frame of them talking to their audience, because they're celebrities, they're personalities, their face and their voice is their brand. And so that's got to look good. And right now, the only solution that they have to upgrade what they're doing is to go to a DSLR setup. So the logical progression is you go from a webcam to a DSLR setup. And a DSLR setup requires that the camera be on a mount that's behind your monitor. It requires a capture card. It requires a powered battery replacement. It requires additional lighting, and oftentimes it puts such a load on the host PC that the gamers will actually get a secondary PC just to handle the video feed before they mix it in. And when you have a DSLR, you can't control the functions of the camera from the host. You got to get up, go around, adjust all the settings, come back, and while it gives you an amazing quality from a gamer streamer standpoint, it's a much more convoluted process, and they want simplicity. So one of the things we did, there's a video on our YouTube channel. We worked with Intel and their Empyrean group. They do power management systems. And we ripped out all the power management circuits we have in the camera and replaced them with Empyrean parts. And we got the power consumption down to about half of what we were using. So now you can plug the camera in with a single USB connector for data and power. So now you have basically a single cable connection. And then we take a lot of the things that put load on the host PC off. So, you know, what's behind me, you see now, is color substitution. And the cool thing about color substitution is we don't do subtraction, we do substitution. So it allows you to take any number of colors, we have 4 bands, and convert them into anything else, in which case I'm using what Serge refers to as toxic green. And by doing that, you can have horrible lighting, you can have shadows, you can have hot spots, you can, I mean, we jokingly take a 99-cent paper tablecloth, stick it in the wall of a lobby of a hotel, and turn it into a perfect green screen. And that tablecloth may be blue or pink or purple or anything else like that, and we turn it into a green screen. And
this addressed exactly what you and Michael were talking about right before we went live, in fact.
Yeah, I mean, this is 4, you saw it earlier, this is 4 color pieces of cardboard behind me. I spent 50 cents a piece on them, and I duct taped them together and then stuck them on the wall with a pen, right? And that's my green screen.
And you don't have the effect that you have usually with the cheaper chroma key stuff. Even Cam Twist, I can't do it right now, but what you get is what's it called, where the effect where you start to see the hairs and all of that.
You get a halo effect, yeah.
Whatever the name of that is, it's really obvious. Whereas here, you switched over. I didn't even notice you switched. I mean, we've been talking. You have that 4 color thing in back of you, and now it's totally green, and we wouldn't know.
You are the only party in the conference. If your meeting was interrupted, please remain connected to allow others to rejoin.
We'll do that.
We'll mute them.
We'll definitely do that.
A party of one. That sounds like a bottle of tequila, right?
You are the only one in this. I don't know what we did to deserve this, but Michael's on it, right?
So the other thing that this chroma key does, or this color substitution does, is it allows a lot of creativity. And unfortunately, I didn't have time to dial it in beforehand, but you can do things like ghost mode. So I can turn myself into a high contrast shadow. Duncan Kneedeep, who's one of our greatest streamers, he's been playing with the camera since it was a little itty bitty cube. Loves to turn himself purple, this cartoon purple, and he becomes Twitch Prime when people log up. And then we allow you to store all the settings in hotkeys, so you can flip the video settings instantaneously during a feed. Right in the middle of a game, if you die, you can go into ghost mode. If you level up, you can get all sparkly. There's all kinds of things you can do, to create a differentiation artistically in your presentation. So this is what allows streamers and content creators more power in what they do by using our camera. And we, one of the other things that we did, since the last time we talked, we did this really cool thing where we changed to a, back up so it's in focus. We changed to a standard C mount. So this allows you to a much wider range of lens choices. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we find people like to do is to get the old 16mm movie camera lenses, which were C lenses.
Prime lenses, baby. Prime lenses.
Yeah. There's a company called Elgeet, E-L-G-E-E-T. It's the two letters of each of the names of the three guys who started the company. Those lenses are absolutely insanely beautiful. And you can get them for, $19 to $1,000 on eBay, depending upon which one you want. They generate an amazing quality. And again, the idea is give people a chance to play with lenses to match their setup. With a webcam, you're stuck. With a DSLR, you're hundreds of dollars each time you want to change a lens. And we want you to be able to change lenses for less than the cost of pizza, right? That's kind of the whole. Make it affordable, make it easy, make it something you can play with. And again, hoping to have in our wiki, in our forums, places where people can go and say, hey, this is my setup. This is the lens that I used. This is the result that I got. You got to go try it, So really building the community involvement in what can be done with the camera.
Yeah, I think the community part of it too is an excellent idea, because I haven't looked at that yet, because that's really not what we do. But the idea of involving people has shown time and time again that it's a good idea, because then you build this network. And for one thing, I've experienced this in other things that I'm interested in. I'm sure people who are into photography have been on at least one serious forum, which is a community for photographers, for example. And when they're done properly, there's peer support. There's all kinds of things. You won't have to answer the phone 24/7. And it's just, people come up with stuff that even you haven't thought of too. So that's great. That's excellent.
Well, and that's what we're hoping for. There's only 4 of us in the company, and it's all personally funded. And we're not a big giant corporation. I mean, I saw a statistic a while back. Apple has 800 people doing what we have one person doing, and they have an unlimited stack of cash. So, we are really rely on our community to help us in a lot of different ways. And we rely on our partners. We have some amazing partners. I'm not going to call them vendors, because they're not. That's an insult. They're truly our partners. The guys who design the housing are just, Mike and his team at PSC have just put gazillions of hours into developing this camera. VUC739, the company that makes the lenses, they're always bending over backwards and doing something special for us. And we've gotten a lot of help recently from Intel. If it wasn't for them, we would have been sunk back in June. And Darren Poole and his team said, well, hey, we'll step up. We'll redesign your power management circuit, and we'll solve some of the big challenges you're facing. And it was like they threw out, I don't know, 20 or 30 different parts that we didn't need and replaced them with these 4 little Empyrean modules. And it was like, okay, you win. You did a beautiful job. And we wouldn't survive without that. I mean, we wouldn't be here without the kind of help we get from people like that.
Here's a quick look at the one of the pages on SUB2r. That's sub, S-U-B, the digit 2r.com. This is on the broadcasters thing, just to show a little bit about what you were talking about. There's the modules.
Yeah.
Fanless cooling. And some details. Of course, there's a button where you can click if you want to pull the trigger and order one of these things. We encourage you to do that.
Yeah. And
talk to me about color sampling structure.
By color sampling, what do you mean?
Am I able to get 444 out of it? Is
Yes.
it 422? I mean, how
What you're limited to right now is the bandwidth that we can push out over USB. And it's USB 3.0, which is supposed to be 5 and is really more like 3.5 by the time
change.
Yeah.
So in order to be 4K 30, then I've got to be using like NV12 encoding.
Yes.
Fit it down that wire. Okay.
Yeah.
Which is 420. Okay.
So what we're doing is we're looking at improving that. The FPGA we use right now has got some limitations. We're actually looking at newer and more wider bandwidth FPGAs. And so we intend, this isn't the end, this is the beginning, as I like to say. It took us this long to get to the beginning, right? But right now we offer YUV and NV12 output. We also have what we call our version of Cinema Raw, which is we bypass everything and give you the data straight from the camera. So it's an RGGB output. Some people prefer to edit and do their demosaicing and everything else post. So we give you that bypass switch. We can say, okay, we'll just give you everything raw and you can go play with it all you want. Now, an interesting thing you might like is that we built this, our imaging pipeline, as you can imagine, over time. And so we bolted this feature on. Oh, well, we need contrast. We bolted this feature on. Oh, well, we need brightness, or we need gamma, or we need saturation. And we would bolt a piece on and bolt a piece on and bolt a piece on. And most of that pipeline operates in RGB space. And RGB space has a lot of limitations to it mathematically. So we are in the process right now of converting the entire pipeline to an HSL pipeline. And when we're done with that, which might be as short as 8 weeks from now, we will allow you to have 64 bands of control over initially the H and then finally the S and L values of the pipeline. So basically having this, amazing amount of control in very narrow bandwidths of color. So you can dial it in ways that you've never been able to on camera. And we're always looking to be an on-camera streaming, no more than 1 frame of latency and doing as much processing on board as possible.
Cool.
That's all you got, Michael?
For the moment. Bit depth. That's the other thing. Is it all 8-bit video, 10-bit video, 14-bit video?
No, we don't do anything 14. The most we've done is 12. Depends on the image sensor. This particular image sensor is a 10-bit color. And of course, when you convert that to RGB, then you end up with 24-bit. But the camera board itself is interchangeable. So depending upon what image sensor we use, we have the ability to change and adapt to what bit depth that particular sensor is creating, which is another cool thing. I mean, we always forget about it, but when we come up with a new camera board, you don't buy a new camera. You simply buy the board and plug it in. That was kind of the premise behind this. Is all the logic is flexible. It's on a programmable FPGA, which means we can adapt to new camera boards. So every time we come up with a new one, you don't have to buy a new camera.
Trying to think what the next camera board's going to be. Is it going to be, is it just going to be a higher res camera board, or is it going to be like an IR board, or is it going to be something,
so
entirely different?
We have a number of cool things on the roadmap, all of which will depend upon how successful we are. Actually, the next chip is a 4K 60 chip, native 4K 60, downsamples to 1080p at 120 frames a second. But what makes it really exciting for us is it's on-chip HDR.
Mm-hmm.
So it does triple sampling of the pixel during one frame of exposure. And I've seen test videos of it using this, not that we built, but that the manufacturers built. Insanely beautiful. And we see that, increasing the dynamic range by having an on-chip HDR would be really beneficial to the people who use our camera. We're also going back in time, and we want to design in the sort of the new generation of our original 720p sensor, because that has a very large pixel architecture and really good for high speed and low light scenarios. It also has a very nice sensitivity band in the near infrared, which most CMOS sensors don't. So if you want to do an infrared imaging like ghost hunting or orb chasing, it has a much better, up to about 850, maybe even close to 875 nanometer, much better sensitivity range than your standard CMOS image sensor. So it's a fun camera. It's a fun chip to use for those kinds of applications.
And how accessible? I mean, how much can I do before I have to be programming the FPGA myself?
Well, our end goal is to have it such that the user, an average user, has the ability to do two things. One is to change the parameters that control an algorithm. And we've always wanted that. And we built that in whenever possible, because if we have to put in a fixed number or a variable, we want to make that accessible to the end user to be able to play with that. And then we want to be able to have you move in sequence where in the pipeline something goes. So for instance, you may say, I really want to put contrast at the very beginning of the pipeline, as opposed to in the middle or the end of the pipeline, and be able to plug that out and move it into different parts of the pipeline and actually change how and where certain aspects of the image is processed. We're not there yet, but that's our design. And now that we have a very stable hardware platform, it becomes a matter of building the firmware around it. And the nice thing about being an FPGA is if you have a camera that you buy today, and we come out with this feature 2 months from now or 3 months or a year from now, you simply upgrade your FPGA. You don't have to buy a new camera. It's software driven. If you're really into writing VHDL code, we have a, let's see if I get it up there. So, oops, this port right here is a JTAG connection that goes straight to the FPGA. So you can actually plug in, get direct access to the FPGA, and program and debug without hacking the camera. You can open the camera, and there's a lot of features inside the camera you can play with. It's designed to be opened up and played with. That was our goal, is open it up, play with it. We have what we call our blue wire patch, which is a portion of both the motherboard and the camera board that allow you to solder your own components on, and then blue wire those into the rest of the circuitry. So if you need something, we don't know what you need, but we're going to give you a place to play. It's always easier to have a place to solder than trying to, find the back end of of a resistor or capacitor and say, maybe I can solder here without destroying the part, right? It's like, no.
Yeah.
We can do this whole bank of blue wire patches so you can do what you want, and then interface with the rest of the camera. So we're hoping people play with it.
You mentioned earlier you were talking about an event where they use multicam and optical.
Yeah,
I'd be interested because I have a friend and he's been on the VUC twice, Bob, Future Video, and he has a box that does editing of multicam stuff. In other words, you shoot it, and then it's hard for me to explain because I don't know what I'm talking about, but he certainly does. And the point is that you've got these multi-views and you can edit it without what's it called, non-destructive editing of the multicam. Anyway, the question I wanted to ask you was, how was that done? What did it go? What did the optical? Okay, so you got an optical feed from 3 cameras, I think you said. Where did that go? What kind of equipment did that talk to?
So we ran to a single PC, and I think he was running either XSplit or OBS, which allows you to take multiple inputs. And then he was broadcasting out of that, I believe. I wasn't in that side of it. I was stringing optical cable and trying to get, cameras running. And
why optical? What's the advantage to optical over SDI in that circumstance?
Distance, maybe.
Long distance.
Yeah. See, I'm not completely ignorant. I just want to prove it by getting that in there real quick.
Yeah. No, the advantage of the optical on that was that the setup that they had was very rudimentary. And so the only inputs that they had to their PC were USB. So we had to get from the camera over optical, long distance, and it had to be bidirectional, and then get to a USB input to their editing camera or their editing platform.
So it was optical to like a 10G or what was the back end of that then?
It was, God, I don't even have one anymore. It was a little hub that you can buy that converted back to a USB format, and it was USB 3, so it's going to be 5 gig.
Okay.
The advantage is that there was it's bidirectional. So there were two fiber cables, and one that allowed them to talk and manage the camera, and the other one that took data back in. So
yeah, SDI is so limited that way. It's a one-way street.
Yeah, we find that, for instance, HDMI is great. I've got a big monitor right in front of me that's running HDMI straight from the back of the camera, which is fabulous. But it's a one-way street. And
it's short distance. I mean, HDMI is real short distance.
Yeah, you have 50 meters max if you're lucky. And fiber is one of the things that's good about fiber is when you do things like deep sea ROVs, they run everything over fiber.
It certainly eliminates ground or electrical potential differential issues. It's good for electrical isolation that way.
The other thing is that the downside of fiber is that it's extremely fragile. And you get some of these guys who don't realize that, and they think they're laying, regular copper wire, and they step on them and shut doors on them and kink them when they roll them up. And it's like, no, guys, it's glass. You can't.
Well, don't you get the what do they call it? The fibers, it can be jacketed in tough stuff, right? But it's expensive.
Right. So again, we don't look at creating that solution. That's other people have done a fabulous job of solving that. What we really wanted to do is to say, how can we make this platform as adaptable as possible with the least amount of internal mechanism necessary to support that? And these hot swappable modules that go into an SFP cage was absolutely a perfect solution. Embryonics is making more and more unique modules. They have a Wi-Fi module, they have an HDR module, they have a compression module. And we we don't have to do anything. We just support that and then let them do what they do best, which is to convert that into whatever you want. And for the end user, it means that you're not buying a camera with features that, you know, functionality that you don't have to pay for. You know, if you're not using it, why have a gig output? You know.
Besides, I don't want a gig. I want 10 gig.
Yes.
Right, for my own reasons, and so I want to swap that out, or 5 gig or 2.5 gig as you know,
right,
be available shortly.
We spoke briefly last time we talked to you about the control of the camera or the tweaking of the variables, whatever configuration and stuff. And at that time, it was Windows only, and I assume it probably still is. Any plans in the future for widening that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. So what Igor has done is to, he actually went out and bought a Mac, MacBook Pro or MacBook Air or something like that. Started working on it for about, I want to say about a month, and then pitched it out the window. That I will never touch again. But we make all of the libraries and all of the, and again, this is out of my comfort zone. So if I say something incorrectly, don't hold it against me. But all of the code, all of the addresses, all of the registers, all of the libraries necessary to build the user interface, we make public on our wiki page. And as we update that, we continue to update that information. So if you're a Linux programmer, if you're an iOS programmer and you want to write the interface, the hard part is knowing how to hook it all together and what those protocols are, and we make that public. So we're hoping that somebody grabs it and says, oh, well, I want to work on a, you know, Mac-based system, and everything is there for me to build an interface.
It actually sounds like, if you, for the people who know how to do this, that a decent iPod tablet, iPad, yeah, that's what I'm trying. A decent iPad, because they do so many things with audio and they're nice looking in the interface. So if you knew how to program it, or someone knows how to do that programming, and if they do, they know everything. They just have to talk to the information, the registers, and so on that you mentioned, and there could be a really nice control unit in this iPad, for example. I could picture that, because
yeah,
it's done with audio all the time.
Yeah, and we are, again, we're 4 people, you know, so we don't have this massive team of people and this, you know, huge vault of money, which I always imagined down in Cupertino at half of the Apple complex is designed for, you know, like something from James Bond for storing massive stacks of cash, right? Because we don't have that.
To be fair, though, you also don't have their requirements to launch a product that's applicable to every idiot on the planet.
No,
so you get to be more pointed in your attack.
And that's something that we've had long discussions on, because this camera is not designed for people who want a webcam.
Right.
And matter of fact, when we first will talk to a partner, say for instance a printed circuit board manufacturer or an assembly house, I will fine them $50 every time they use the word web in association with our camera, because it's not a webcam. It's not something that you plug in and it instantaneously works beautifully, you know, and it's like, okay, I got a picture, that's great. It's for the person who will let the auto functions get you close, turn the auto functions off, and then is willing to dig in and manage the controls to dial it in exactly the way they want it. Eventually,
I mean, if you guys, your customers, they already know who Point Grey is.
Yeah,
you know, they already know about industrial cameras, and they haven't found a solution, so that's why they're looking to you, I would expect.
Yeah. And then from a cost perspective, you know, it's the idea is to get something that is powerful and affordable. You know, which is, I was wandering Photonics West last week, and there was a company that had a very nice little camera, and I thought, wow, you know, I'm staring at competition, right? You know, this is a beautiful, compact little thing, and it's nice. It was $13,000, and it didn't do half of what we do. And I thought, okay, I'm not so worried. You know?
And who do they think they're selling to? That's an interesting question.
You know, they had a big booth. It was expensive, and obviously have a good customer base. I don't know. I wish I knew their customers. And that's one of our biggest problems, is we've been so, especially the last 9 months, have been so immersed in coming back out of the fire and rebuilding the company from disaster, that we haven't spent a lot of time getting the word out, talking to customers, getting evaluation cameras in the hands of people. I mean, we have evaluation cameras with streamers right now, and they're fabulous, but I really need to get them in the hands of, you know, commercial video people. I need to get them in the hands of research scientists. I need to get them in the hands of all kinds of different people who can begin to explore and understand the power of what we've built, and what they can do with it that they can't do with any other camera. I mean, this is our hope. And I'm not going to say it, because every time I say something goes wrong. In a very short period of time, we're going to have, you know, basically our kitchen table stacked to the ceiling with cameras that I have to ship to people who bought them, which, thank God, they are still behind us, and I love them dearly. And to some to evaluators, and hopefully we start selling them, because that's what this is all about. You know, selling cameras is going to allow us to do all the fun stuff we've been working so hard to get to a point where we can do.
Right. Well, Michael may be able to help you evaluate, and he's in that country, so it's physically possible to do it.
We don't care where you are.
Well, I don't even have USB 3, so it's.
Well, there you go. I can't help you. You know, you have to have USB 3.
Well, couldn't I have what is it called? Not FireWire, but the other, or Ethernet even.
Thunderbolt.
HDMI. I have an HDMI card, but I think that would be way too. First of all, be overkill for me. And second of all, the other thing we would do, if Michael ever has a chance to evaluate it, we would probably try to get a different video platform that does 1080p. I think Jitsi would do that. We'd have to get it set up.
Jitsi definitely does that. In fact,
we were once set up to do it, but then it was banned.
I was talking to Emil about seeing about a Jitsi instance set up for 4K 30. As an experimental platform.
Well, if we could get it set up, if this platform we had running before was okay, it was a little bit buggy, but then the last time I tried it didn't even do the YouTube thing, so it became a non deal breaker for that time. But if we could start again with our own instance that we can control and do it at 1080, then there would be an argument maybe to do some testing on that. And I think you're the only one who's set up to do that, Michael, but it would be great to do that. I can do 1080 here, but
if we were going to do that, we would just pop the back end into a virtual machine somewhere and just let it run. Just go.
So one of the things we found that's interesting is, while everybody likes 4K, there's not a whole lot that displays 4K. And 1080p at 60, especially for the streamers, has much better motion capture than 4K at 30.
And in fact, you're better off doing 1080p HDR, if you can.
Yeah, and so while we thought way back when that, oh my God, we have to have 4K to be able to, give our customers what they want. Most of our customers look at this, go, I'd rather have 1080p 60 because my motion is much cleaner. And that's really what they're looking at. They want the clean motion because they're very animated, and their games are refreshing now at, 120, and I've seen 240 refresh rates on the new action games. So Fortnite and things like that are running really, really high refresh rates. And so they want to get close to that. They want to start matching the refresh rates of the games. So
aren't there a couple of 5K monitors on the market right now?
Probably.
Oh, Apple's been in that for a while. 8K monitors are out as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's like 2 of them that you see at every show, and only one of them's on sale actually, or something, right? I mean, there's
5K monitors are around. I mean, LG's been in that space for a bit. I think Samsung too. Right. The reason why people are using those is because it gives them a canvas on which to reasonably work on 4K content and have menu around it and not having squished down.
That's really what it does. Yeah, it gives you the ability to have more content on a larger screen, not necessarily displaying one single thing on 5K.
So you'd be able to have both Facebook and LinkedIn with Twitter on the other side,
and all your editing functions and things like this open at the same time is what they're really.
Yeah, with a couple of 5K monitors, you can say you're running Resolve to edit and to color correct. You can be looking at pixel for pixel exactly what your source material is at 4K and still have all the menus and stuff that you need to actually run the application.
Yeah, and the other thing that we found is, and this is true in so many different things, is if you start with a higher resolution and you drop down, your information is much better. If you take 1080p and compress it down to 720p, you will always look better than a stock 720p image, or just the nature of the game. It's
and also super sampling is great, and particularly if you're coming off 4K 30 NV12 and you're taking 420, and then you can downsample that, you'll just have a much better result.
And so as we go forward, we want to offer more versions, more video formats. And again, it's a software upgrade. So we add something, we make that available. Our UI is just a one-click to upgrade the firmware, and you're off and running. And if you go, oops, I didn't like that, you can go back and go back as many versions as you want till you get to that version that you were comfortable working with. Not like Microsoft that says, oh, we are going to enhance your user experience whether you like it or not, and there's no going back.
Let me say something that I've said to you before, but now may be a better time for a couple of reasons. Nutex NDI is very interesting, and they actually have sample code. They're supporting manufacturers with FPGA dev examples, and their SDK includes that. So because it's basically everything that does full bandwidth NDI right now is FPGA based.
Yeah, our decision to go with an FPGA was probably one of the smarter things we did. We actually run 2 FPGAs inside the camera, which is fun. We're going to be at NAB, I think. Embryonics wants to demo their modules on our cameras, and I've always wanted to go, and we saw this as an opportunity to help them promote their modules using our technology. And I'm really looking forward to it, because there's going to be a lot of the industry type connections I can make there that I've never been able to do before. I mean, we've been really focused on the gaming people, but now is the time to kind of branch out and start talking to people in a much wider circle. It's kind of exciting to see what's going on out there.
You answered the question I was going to ask about where people can see this, what shows you're doing, and so on. It's funny you mentioned that esports and Mark Cuban buying and so on. There's a show called Ballers with The Rock.
Oh, yeah. I
think it's an HBO show. And as a matter of fact, last season, they had that exact scenario where somebody, but I think it was Steve Buscemi. No, it was British. No, it was the British comic whose name escapes me at the moment. Outrageous guy who was perfect in that role. And he was the owner of this esport thing. And the guys, Dwayne's company was going to buy it. Anyway, point is, I just now realized the connection and how they were really riffing off that situation that you just mentioned.
Oh yeah,
more buying these things.
More people watch the League of Legends championship than watch the Super Bowl.
God, that's
incredible.
But that doesn't include the Super Bowl commercials.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway,
a couple years ago, they did the League of Legends championship at the Rockefeller Center, and they sold out in 4 seconds.
Wow. And are there replays of that kind of thing? These games,
yeah.
do they get replayed?
Oh, and
archive videos and stuff?
Yeah, and the purses are going up astronomically. I mean, like the last thing I heard is one of the championships, it was a $10 million prize for the team that won. I was talking to a guy at NRG Sports, and now buying a player is all the same negotiation that they go through if you were going to buy a quarterback, right?
I'm sure.
I mean, it's just as complicated as that. And, these guys have training and they have facilities set up where they do physical training, and then they do game training, and they review the plays. And I mean, it's like any other pro sport. And to me, it's mind-boggling, the amount of money and talent and work that's going into it. There are even universities that offer esports as now a degree you can get, which is amazing. And then you see something like H1Z1, which is a massive role-playing game, and they'll have between 150 and 400 stations inside of an arena, and all of these people playing simultaneously till it gets down to one last player. Now, if you think from a networking standpoint, what it takes to hook up, 150 to 400 gaming PCs with all the cameras, with all the microphones, all into an editing station. I mean, this is a massive networking setup. And it's mind-blowing where this is going. And for us, it's kind of fun because we're kind of inching into that market space and that world, and it's going to be exciting to see how we can play there and what we can provide them.
Well, more power to you, Rich.
Thank you.
We're always happy to have you. SUB2r.com, and we'll be looking for great things from you. I'm going to email you about my friend Bob. There may be a connection to be had there with future venue, possibly. Also, I suggest my last word is you should probably look into porn for these cameras, because I'm sure there's a lot of kidding that was supposed to be for the mature audiences. Everybody, thanks for your support.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rich. And thanks to everyone who watches this and enjoys it and comments. A lot of people have made pleasant comments to us, and that's all the support we need. Ciao, till next week.
Thank you, guys.